Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. It is cold in New York. I have not left my house. This is the look we have. It's showered, it's fresh, it smells amazing. The beat is on, but we've worked really hard to give you not only a really, really well crafted conversation, we're going to try to fit a lot of stuff in. A lot of things have happened. If you are someone who's watching this industry and making sure that you are aware of what you need to do, we are right coming upon 2023, and it's going to be even more busier than ever. And so we're really, really gracious to the team at OCM. Shout out to Sierra Smith. Thank you to Axel and Damien. Thank you to Carlene Pinto. Thank you to Cassia Graham. Thank you to Nathan Raphael. Thank you to everyone and anyone who was a supporter. Thank you to the team at Canny. Thank you to anybody who shared this. There's been so many reshares. Canadiva, Women Grow, Abaddon Hayes Society, Mary Says and Why, Alana Franco, anybody who was a farmer, Warren Wide. We thank you for being involved and being a part of this conversation to talk about New York's market. I'm going to give you individuals who will need some introduction, but really need no introduction. We're going to add in Damien Fagon and Axel, who are leading the way in shaping what is the New York State cannabis market. We're going to have them give a quick intro. We'll get right to questions. And thank you so much for joining us. I'll let you hop onto it.
All right, I'll get it started, Axel. Thank you, Mary. Mary Pryor was one of the first people I met in New York cannabis back in 2017, 2018. Same event I met Chris Alexander at Harlem Business Alliance. That's how far back this goes. We had a pretty intense night that night talking about what was coming. I remember Chris was yelling about expungement. I was yelling about hemp. Mary Pryor was yelling about marketing and branding. But no, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm Chief Equity Officer at OCM. I'll be talking a lot about some of our equity initiatives coming out, and the design of the program, sort of how the architecture of the market is going to fit in with our equity goals and the inclusive and diverse market that we're trying to create here in New York. My background is in hemp farming, in agriculture and economics, and pleasure to be here. I'll turn it over to Axel.
Thanks, Damien. Very happy to be here. Always happy to be talking to Mary and to the folks here. So, we can jump right in. I've been doing this for quite some time. My background is law and economics. I'm an antitrust geek, and was sort of involved in drafting the bill that we're now trying to implement. So we're very excited to see what this looks like. And you guys are the center of this. So we really want to hear from you and talk about how this is all going to go down. So let's get right to it.
Awesome. So I'm going to tell everybody who we have about 35 people coming on. This is airing across Twitter, from our page, OCM's page, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. If you are going to be sending this to other people, do that now, because we're about to start diving right into these questions. I'll start right here. Can you please describe sole control and what that means in terms of what you've put together with these regulations and why people need to understand that meaning of it?
Sure. I can take that one, Damien, if you...
Yeah.
So sole control is meant to be the person that's designated within the organization who has the ability to control, to influence, and really to have the final say over major business decisions. So, that sounds like control, but the additional caveat is that sole control would mean that no other person or group of people can have the right to remove that person from their role or to control the board independently. So the idea, you don't necessarily have to have, for example, the majority of board seats, but you have to have more board seats than anybody else. And we really just use this in our social equity context. So, we're not trying to control everybody's business, but because our card applicants, for example, have a leg up, are getting going early, they're getting capital, they're getting a lease, we want to make sure that they stay with social equity folks, and that the people that are at the center, the people that got the license because they were 51% owners, are actually sole control. The folks have sole control over that company. So they're not going to get watered down. They're not going to get voted out. They're not going to get overruled. That's pretty much what it means. I hope that helps.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I
Go
just
ahead,
want to
Damien.
Yeah, I just want to add that, this definition also is the result of a lot of activity that we've watched happen in other states, where the license holder is just the license holder in name and face only. And I think we've seen that in other industries where Black and brown faces are in front of the business or in front of the development project or whatever is going to happen. But behind the scenes, there's all types of multi-level ownership structures that kind of conceal who actually is running the business. And, if we're going to have equity in New York, it's going to look like true equity. It's got to actually be ownership. You have to actually be controlling the business decisions of that organization. And so sole control is probably one of the most crucial definitions we have in the regs, protecting equity and protecting ownership.
Awesome. Will capital in some way, just given the whole gaps across like being able to do investment in the space, be available from the 50 million that's there to support anyone in this card round?
Yeah, I mean, so capital is deployed and tried and amplified with bringing private capital to the table. So the fund is designed to start to stimulate a private-public partnership with $50 million as a down payment and $150 million from the private sector to match. And the idea is that, right, once that fund is capitalized, you would have the state or the fund through its subsidiary or its agent, DASNY, find leases, enter into those leases, renovate those, and have a loan attached to those leases. So that's the first step of capital. I mean, we're always looking to facilitate access to capital because we know that that's the number one problem that social equity participants have. So we're also looking to, per the cannabis law, have grants of some sort, an incubator that provides access to capital or facilitates bridging capital. We want to bring our dispensaries together with other investors that are maybe ESG or impact investors that want to get involved. But I think, what I would say on capital that's a bit of an indirect approach to this question is, and you'll hear Damien and I talk about this a lot, is our two-tier system, right? And there's a reason I think that there's a relationship between a two-tier system and capital. And that's because what we're doing is creating an independent group of owners for our retail tier that cannot be owned or influenced by supply side, right? So we've talked a lot about this, but what it does is it gives opportunities for folks to invest in retail in a safer way than you would if you're being challenged by fully vertical entities that are sort of pushing their product or carrying only their brands. And so we think it's an interesting tier for investors. We think that you can get you can get into a retail tier company with less capital. You can get into it with a safer bet because you're sort of protected. There are limited number of dispensaries, and they're all important and sort of separated from one another. So we can go into that, and I don't want to spend too much time because it's a lot to unravel. But that's also how you get capital infusions. You give people a valuable license so that people want to invest in that license.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I think that, the social and economic equity team here at OCM, particularly here in our Albany office, we fully intend to make capital available to all license types that are going to be, deployed for social and economic equity licensees going forward. And we're looking still at public-private partnerships, but, not necessarily it's like a fund, but how can we support credit unions to deploy capital? How can we lower risk? How can we make these loans more available, lower the interest rates? Because the state does have a lot of resources, but we also want to use the flexibility and the speed at which the private sector can move when it comes to deploying capital. I don't think anyone wants to wait around for 6 months to get a loan from the state. And so we are looking at a lot of solutions that involve the private sector, potentially the state underwriting loans or just coming in to back those loans up in a way that they are more comfortable deploying them into a new industry.
And if I can just jump off of that too, Mary, is the SAFE Act's been a bone of contention and somewhat a lot of discussion around the SAFE Act. But I think overall, in New York, I think the way we structured our market going with equity first, the SAFE Act would help to unlock what Damien just said. If we could get the SAFE Act included on Monday and push that through, we think we have enough protections around social equity in New York that freeing up of capital would actually flow to the right actors and would help a lot of our social equity. So we're sort of in favor on that front.
Awesome. I am going to add our additional co-host, Carlene from Latinas Grow. Thank you for joining us.
Carlene.
Yes, and now that everyone's here, we're going to start the formalized presentation of this program. And with our first question here, and I'll let Carlene go forth after I ask this one, which is, when will we hear more details around the micro licenses in New York State? Anybody can go for this one.
We're talking about the micro business license?
Macro business, yes.
Yeah.
We love these licenses. Damon, you should walk through it. It's a killer license.
Oh my, yeah. So this license, if you look at it in the MRTA, it also, designates it, primarily for social and economic equity applicants. And the more you look at this license and the flexibility that it offers the licensee, the more you understand its potential in the future. We're talking about a license that can do, straight to consumer branded products that you grow in your own grow. It can also do, clones directly to people who are doing home grow. It can do delivery, on-site consumption. And in another way that I think is really important, if we talk about, the commodification of the industry, large scale grows, the inevitability of just like that price coming down in the future, if you have a micro business, you can brand your own products. You can develop your brand in your community, in your neighborhood, that will, last beyond interstate commerce, that'll last beyond that commodification of the grow. And you can really, pivot in a lot of different directions in the long term with the micro business license. And this is a license type that we plan to, deliver hundreds of. If you can imagine in Brooklyn, for example, maybe like Bed-Stuy, you could have a small retail storefront, your grow and manufacturing facility somewhere away, and be selling your own branded products to your own community, and having that interaction, that consumer-producer interaction, where they're telling you what they want, you going right back to the grow to do those genetics next. It has this amazing feedback loop with the consumer and with the communities they operate in that we think is going to be a hallmark of New York State's cannabis industry. I mean, we want that local consumer demand and the producer to be in communication. We want it to be a neighborhood cannabis spot where it's like, oh, I got my guy. He's got the warehouse, over in East Brooklyn, where he grows his weed, and I love the strain that he grows, and he's developed it over time, and blah blah blah. There's a lot of potential for this license to transform not only the wealth of these operators, but also the way we interact with cannabis generally. It brings the consumer closer to the plant, which is always going to be good. There's a lot of transfer of information and culture and communication there that we think is really important.
And I so love that, right? I mean, totally agree with Damien on that. It's an exciting license. I'd only add a couple of things. One is we do have regs that are out, and they were published today. So there are regs. There's 60-day comment period that really sets out what that license can and can't do. So take a look at it. You've heard more about it today. I mean, we issued it back at the board meeting, but look at the rules and regs around that. What we're proposing to make it viable, and certainly give us feedback on that. But we're excited. I think what Damien pointed out is really what we've seen in the craft beer model, right? When you look at the large supply side companies like Diageo and Constellation that have houses of brands, what they do is they turn to the microbreweries, they turn to the smaller breweries for a supply of innovative brands, and they pick those up, and that's the micro license. And as Damien said, as consolidation potentially happens with national movement of product, those are going to be the ones that are going to be much more competitive. And plus, again, tying in the two-tier market, what you have is these micros are able to sell their product not only directly to consumer, like Damien said, and not only directly to consumer from where they're making it, but the regs actually propose that you can have a store somewhere else. That's an interesting innovation to the craft model, which we think will be exciting. But you can also sell to other retailers. And so, how many retailers are going to carry a small micro brand? Well, you'd be surprised, because these retailers are going to be looking for cool, innovative brands, not just selling their shelf space, because it's a two-tier market. So they're actually going to carry and look for micro brands because they want to be hot and they want to be in the now. So we think there'll be a good feeder, like Damien said, small micros that either sell direct to consumer or sell to other retailers that will want to buy because they're not squeezed, on the shelf space. So one stat I heard that I haven't yet verified, but I'm going to repeat it here, even though I haven't checked it. I just recently heard that in Canada, 50% of products being sold are coming from micros that have 2,000 square feet of grow. And when I asked why, they said, well, because of the tax system that actually sort of taxes those less than the bigger grows. But just the idea that 50% of a market could come from that kind of micros, and those products are in better demand because they're more innovative, is really heartwarming and sort of aspirational. We'd like to repeat that here, where a lot of it is local, a lot of it is sustainable, a lot of it is innovative, and that's, I think, how you do it through that micro license. So as you can see, we're stoked about that license.
The last thing I'll add to that is that there's, obviously a legacy tradition of doing exclusive drops when it comes to strains. This is the license for that. If you want to plug in that culture of exclusive drops that are limitedly available, I think the micro business license is where we're going to see that. And, we're really going to try and encourage, some of our legacy growers to be looking at this license as a potential transition license.
3,500 square feet.
Yeah, you can do a lot with that.
Yeah, you can work it.
Well, in that case, Carlene gets the hottest question since we're so excited about that, which is this one.
Great question.
When are other licenses going to become available?
Middle of next year. As soon as people get us their comments, we go through the comments, we reissue them, and then we're off to the races. So it's just now the clock starts today.
Yeah. And I was talking to a legacy operator about this. Like, why can't we just do this right now? There's a law in New York. There's a public comment period. There's a process that we have to go through that the regs are also going to benefit from. The regs are fantastic. I gotta say they're the best in the nation, but they can be made better. And that's with comments from people who know what they're talking about from all over the country. If you see something in there that we got wrong, whether it be the cooperative law or some retail requirement, some financial disclosure requirement, let us know, explain it to us in the email, regulations@ocm.ny.gov. Like we want to know this stuff. The regs only get better because of your comments.
Thank you for that. So we're going to move into our next question. How is the justice impacted part of this program justified? And that's a really important point for folks from our communities, especially folks that have traditionally, including myself and from our team, lived in zip codes impacted by the war on drugs.
Yeah, this is such an important part of the program. I mean, this is the central focus point of the MRTA. It speaks to Chris's, background too with Drug Policy Alliance. I mean, the other day, Axel and I were actually at an event where we ran into the founder of Drug Policy Alliance, and there's so much work that went into getting us to where we are from public defenders and activists. We get a lot of inspiration from that community about the way forward. And there are so many communities. I mean, on my team, for example, Jim Rogers is the head of our small business development team, and he was a public defender in the city for 20 years. And he brings a lot of that background and insight into how we bring out the small business support services that we're going to be launching. And so, the prioritization of individuals from communities disproportionately impacted is right there in the law. So is the prioritization for people with marijuana arrests in the state of New York. That continues and carries forward in licensing, in reinvestment, in grants, loans. What we've seen from the card program is just really a small section of what's to come, because the wraparound services, the reinvestment, that's mandated by law. We have to do these things. And, this is something that the state of New York did to its citizens. And now this is the state of New York coming back to the table with an acknowledgement of wrongdoing, past wrongdoing, and a mandate to help fix it. And, I've been in plenty of meetings with people who've been arrested multiple times for weed, and they look me dead in the eye and they're like, that's not enough. What you're doing is not enough. And, that may be the case. There's absolutely no way in some of these situations to actually right what happened to these individuals. But we're going to try. Like we owe it to the state. We owe it to these communities to try our best to make sure that cannabis isn't, it's a positive actor in these communities, as opposed to what it's been traditionally used for.
Thanks. So we're moving into our next question. Well, we went through this one. When are other licenses becoming available? We're going to skip to our next one. Will social equity be considered when micro and delivery licenses are awarded?
Social equity is always considered on every license.
Mhm.
The foundation of what we do. And if you look at the regs as we propose them, there's a huge section about that selection criteria. What have you done for the community? What are you doing? So it's throughout. It's all the way through. The exact mechanism, we're still waiting to hear back from folks and fine tuning. It's not easy, to define social equity. It's not easy to have a objective scoring metric. It's not, none of this is easy. And as you guys saw, even on card, where we tailored it on the basis of convictions and on the basis of where you were when you were convicted, where you live. And we got challenged from someone in Michigan, purportedly, which is really someone from California, that found a way to say, they deserve a license in New York as well, and that somehow we're favoring New York residents when we're not. But so that's a challenge, and we set it out in the regs, and it always will be the central focus of what we do.
I think an important point about these challenges that come out, because they've hit every other state that have launched social equity programs, by putting equity first, these challenges slow down licenses for everybody. We are going to do equity first. And so that if these programs get delayed, everyone gets delayed. And I want to be clear about that. Like, this doesn't happen without equity. And so, we expect, this to continue, obviously, but, there's a mandate, a clear mandate in the law to do this work, and we will continue to do it.
Thank you. And so we're sliding into our next question. Can you share the projected timeline for when card retail shops open and or will open?
It's easy. ASAP. They're
already.
I mean, we are talking to card applicants that are talking to labs, that are talking to processors, that are talking to growers, and everybody's just banging out the supply chain. It's been so exciting. We have folks that are going to be opening before the end of the year, on track to do that. We have leases that are being signed. I mean, we have products in, New York grown brands, New York processed, New York tested, and now they're going to be delivered out. We have delivery folks looking for delivery locations. We're going to, it's happening in real time right now. That's a lot of what we're doing right now. And I got to be honest, that's probably the most exciting part of my day, is when we get to talk to folks that are opening their locations.
Yeah, I'll just say that, I was at the Bronx event, the cannabis event this Saturday, and I got to meet two different of our Long Island card recipients, incredible people. And then they met each other for the first time, which was cool to watch. Like Nassau County and Suffolk County, just like, oh, yo, what's up? And they were talking strategy, they were talking delivery. So things are organically just starting to connect. Like, I want these card recipients to get on the WhatsApp groups. You know what I mean? I want them to be talking to one another. I want them to start building this industry organically. Our job is to set the parameters for a fair and just industry. What those licensees do with it, we're curious to see. And so when they start making those connections with the farmers, with the processors, with the labs, and meeting one another, and talking strategy and talking how to get the best products to consumers and to New Yorkers, that's what we want. We're not going to do it for them, obviously. We're gonna definitely maybe introduce them, like, hey, come meet this guy. But this is what happens naturally in any kind of industry.
Yes, thank you for that. So our next question, can you talk more about the card license holders, about how card license holders can and will be able to access the supply chain in the midst of the comment period?
I mean, it's an extension of that first question. The card folks, their regs are already out, so they're already moving. The comment period is for the other types of licenses. We have conditional growers, we have conditional processors, we have labs, and distributors. So the whole supply chain has been built on a foundation of social equity: small farmers, sustainable farmers, outdoor grow, small New York product, to now cards and the card dispensaries that are non-for-profits that are in the space. Some really cool non-for-profits. Housing Work, shout out. They're going to be out on the 29th. I mean, we're on Broadway, Astor Place. I mean, fantastic location. Mission of hiring folks, buying from brands that are minority owned. Just really exciting when we hear what they're doing. That's the supply chain right now. I mean, some of the card applicants are talking to all sorts of interesting people that want to get behind their dispensaries, partnerships with like big established brands that are not even in cannabis, that are seeing the opportunity. And like Damien said, whenever we meet people at events, they got some of the wildest stories about who's approaching them on doing this stuff. So it's just a matter of rolling out, picking who they're partnering with, where they're going to open. You know, it's that supply chain's there. It's a small supply chain, and we're gonna, right by the middle of the year, we're gonna open it up to the rest. So by the end of the year, we're gonna have built the rest of the house on the Social Equity Foundation. So all these relationships are gonna get established. Everybody's gonna find each other, and then we're gonna open it up, and those folks are gonna be just already, you know, kicked into high gear. At least that was the model. That was the design. We're crossing our fingers that it goes smoothly. There'll be hiccups. There'll be bumps in the supply chain. There'll be people that won't know where to turn. There'll be, you know, labs that are getting up to speed. The 3 ones we just let in have to get up to speed. So all that's going to happen, but it's exciting time in New York, man. For sure.
Yeah, I just want to add, like, I'm so hyped to buy weed from Housing Works. When you talk about how far that dollar is going, you spend $100 on Housing Works pre-rolls. You know, that's going to a family farm upstate. You know, it's going to the reinvestment money that is going to schools, that's going to drug rehabilitation, and then it's going to that nonprofit to continue that work that they already been doing. Like, your dollar is going a long way to make New York a better state. And imagine when we have 1,000 of those businesses all over the city, all over the state. You know, that money circulating in our economy, it's making people's lives better. It's reinvesting in our communities. That is some guilt-free weed when you're buying.
That's the best pitch, right? Damien, that's the best pitch for our campaign that's coming out in the new year. Buy legal. You're going to buy legal because you're not getting any of the pesticides and the heavy metals and the aspergillus, but you're also buying legal for what Damien just said. I mean, he crushed it, right? I mean, think about it. Every time you buy weed, you're helping people. Every time you're smoking weed, you're helping people. Local growers, tax. It's fantastic.
Awesome. I'm going to start this question because I care about this. So, what is the purpose of the in-county or 25-mile grow location restriction on micro businesses? And does this include consideration of rural areas?
It's a great question. Carve out with the 25 miles, I think it applies to big cities mostly. We're considering places like New York City, where it would just be, financially impossible to have all those things located in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, just because of the real estate costs. Upstate, when you're thinking about, if anyone listening tonight has been to a craft brewery, where you take that nice drive, you stop at the location, maybe it's got a bed and breakfast nearby. That is kind of what we were thinking, for a rural environment. But we also want that license to be flexible enough to work in a place like Manhattan, where they can still have the grow, maybe right on the border with like Rockland County or something, and they can get some cheaper location. They could potentially even grow outdoors. And so that flexibility is just an acknowledgement of the real estate challenges that folks in the city are going to face with accessing this license. Like it's probably pretty hard to start a craft brewery in Brooklyn. I think there's only really like one that's there right now, but it's a lot easier upstate. And so we have to add that flexibility to make sure that these licenses are available to everyone in New York, not just in rural environments.
And Mary, it's important to remember where this comes from, right? The craft was a license, which is really a supply license with some limited retail privileges. And it was meant to be all on site. Like upstate, it's supposed to be, a winery that sells on site. Same thing with breweries and whatnot. So we wanted to unlock the potential by opening that. But if you open it completely, you lose the community vibe around it. It's not supposed to be that you grow, in the North Country and then you're doing a store in the city. That's not the purpose of this license. It's a community license where you grow close to where you sell. And that's the attempt. 25 miles is a bit arbitrary. If folks have ideas about a different number, we want to hear it, justify, but come at it from that perspective. It's community. It's you're growing local, you're selling local. If you're upstate, you're from your farm, or not too far down the road, in your town at your farmer's market or whatever it is. But so that's where we're coming from on that.
And I'll just say,
I know we're about to lose Axel for a second, Damien, not to interrupt you, but I want to get to Axel-ish questions, given how we have so much time left. And Axel, you're still out of here in a few moments. So
I'm sorry, I got governor's office calling.
No problem. Let's get to this one. Actually, let's go to this one first. I'll save that one for later time. Given the amount of predatory dealings in the space, can you please talk about how and why the TPI does its best at protecting our marketplace? I know that a lot of people have conversations around this and understandings around this that are unique. This needs a lot of conversation because Carlene has now seen what, unfortunately, I've seen, being someone who's been in the market over different states. So this be great to kind of dive into as best as possible.
Oh man, Mary, I love this question. So I wish I had more than 4 minutes to answer it, because it is, Damien and I have studied this long and hard. We went deep down this rabbit hole. I understand the TPI, true party of interest. All that means is that we're going to dig in to know who's got an interest in your license. We want to know who's owning you. If you got a license, who are your investors? If you got a fund, who's behind that fund? So we're going to go up and we're going to ask about spouses of those people. That's all TPI is, true party of interest. So TPI isn't controversial. It's just the mechanism by which we enforce a couple of really key things. We got vertical restraints and we got horizontal restraints. So we're trying to keep this market small and competitive. So the vertical is the 2-tier. So if you're a grower, you can't own a retailer, right? And again, Damien can talk about this too, but it's because we got this independent tier of retailers, right? We're going to have the most competitive and dynamic group of retailers carrying all these small products because they're not selling their shelf space like they are in other states. They're not like being, essentially extensions of larger suppliers. So in order to do that, I got to know who owns that retailer. And if there's a fund that's behind of another fund that owns that retailer, and then they're back channeling and owning some cultivator and they're influencing that way, we got to know. And the way we know is your true party of interest. So we go to the retailer and we say, who owns your shares? Well, I do. Who else? Well, and your wife. Well, what other investment does she does? Oh, she happens to own a cultivator. Oh, really? Well, you're going to be carrying only her products, right? Or your husband, same thing. So the idea of TPI is, if you're a small owner with limited investors, you're not even going to feel it, because you're just going to list your cap table and you're going to say, these are the people that own me. If you're complicated and you got out of state investment, then you're going to have to list where it's coming from, and you're going to list how many shares and who owns that. And so, yeah, if you got big funds investing in you, those big funds are going to have to tell us what other funds are investing in them. And they don't typically like to do that because they don't want to, open the kimono. They don't want to open the hood on this stuff. So, it's a little bit of a proctology exam. We get it, but we're really starting something new and fresh here, right? And I think the other thing people have a problem with is that there's a lot of outside money coming in. And so some small retailer, for example, is saying, yo, I got someone from California or even from New Jersey or Vermont that wants to get in on my retail, and they're a big grower or whatever. But why does that matter? Like, why are you being so hard on folks that are growing in California? And we're not discriminating against California. It's we don't want to discriminate against New Yorkers. So if we say that a big grower in New York can't own retail, then we got to do the same thing to everybody else, right? We can't then say, oh, you can't own retail, but if you open up in New Jersey, then you can own all the retail you want. I mean, that just doesn't hold. So we hear your pain, because the money right now is the money that's already in cannabis, and the rest of the country isn't organized in our 2 tiers. But just hold out, look for folks that want to be invested in the retail tier, that love the product, that love the variety, the modalities, the small, brands. Stick with them, find that capital, get that valuable license, and then the market will build around that. We gotta work through it. So yeah, big believer in TPI as the way we keep an eye and keep a check on our 2 tier and stuff. So, but Damien,
Axel, thank you so much. We have so many more questions. Damien, I hope you have water. I don't know what
Timmy's gonna crush it. I wish I could stay. I love talking.
Your man's is leaving you. I'm so sorry that is happening.
We have to make sure the governor is prepped, that the entire
we got some questions. So I hope Damien has a Lunchable or something. Thank you, Axel. Thank you for being part of this.
Guys. Pleasure to be here with you.
No problem. Thank you. We are losing one. Now there were 3. Let's get to the real questions. What?
Yeah, now that he's gone.
What's going on? Yeah.
About the diversity now.
Yeah. This is about to get heated, baby. We got micro businesses, licensees selling flower from other producers and cultivators if they pay for packaging. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So no, they can't. And there's a good reason for that. But, honestly, like, if you think they should be allowed to do that, give us a great reason in the comments during the public comment period. But the micro business has so many operational advantages to other license types that to give them that advantage as well, like it just kind of eviscerates all the other licenses. I mean, they can sell directly to consumer, or they can not, or they can wholesale. They can deliver, they can do on-site consumption, they can sell clones and seedlings to people doing home grow. They can brand their own products, they can sell merch. Like, there is so many different revenue streams, which is why I like it so much for social and economic equity, because it can withstand a lot of the price fluctuations that we're going to see. There's a lot of ways it can pivot and do other things. And, that branding element is really key. And I can kind of lift the hood up on how our team is thinking about licenses for social equity. We like all of the consumer facing licenses for social equity. Social equity applicants may not have the financial capital advantage, the operational advantage, but they got the culture, they got the community. All those things have value. And so if we can bring social and economic equity licensees into businesses that face their community, that face their consumer, that communication can happen, that customer loyalty can be created. And I think that's the advantage that, we're going to see a lot of, diverse voices have over, the larger brands, the larger businesses. They know what their community wants because they're from that community. And that's why, retail, micro business, brands, on-site consumption, these are going to be super important for social and economic equity licensees. And so the micro business, can't buy from other producers and cultivators. They actually can in the case of like crop failure. They had to be in there just in case they lose a grow. They have to be able to buy to supplement their income. But if people have different ideas about what they should be able to do, maybe like they should be allowed to buy a couple thousand pounds from other growers a year. Let us know in the regs. You should share the financials of that.
So while we're here, this is a good question, because it looks like part of the regs were published, it seems, today. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of feedback you're looking for in regards to how card license holders can still access the supply chain in this comment period? And also when it comes to talking about what type of replies you want to see from people that want to talk about, any regs or any suggestions, what's the best and most honest way to do that?
Yeah, I think that, there was a lot of, when I first started is when the card regs were out, and a lot of people were very upset that, there was no incorporation of their comments into those regs. And, when I actually read through all the card comments, one of the biggest challenges was a lot of those comments were about the social equity program. And what a lot of folks, I think, didn't understand at the time, and it was our fault because the office didn't communicate that card wasn't a part of the social equity program. They didn't have a chief equity officer yet. They hadn't written the social equity plan yet. Obviously, it is, hand in glove what we also want to do in the social equity program. It's a part of that. But, so what's important for folks who are trying to communicate something that maybe we got wrong in the regs is, one, explain how we got it wrong in detail, and then suggest how it could change. Rewrite the regs in the way that you would write them. That's, the most success we've seen in the comments that we've gotten so far, especially in the packaging, is that they suggested, instead of say this because it's better. Don't use this word because it's more focused on what you're actually trying to do. And so help us, I think that it's difficult sometimes when we read public comments and they're just it's just a long email, just I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, I don't like that. What is it specifically about it you don't like? What word is wrong there? What canopy square footage is wrong? And then recommend why it should be different and justify it. So yeah, it's kind of a lot of work if you don't want to go through that whole process, but that just helps us understand where you're coming from. And it helps us think more critically about how to respond to your public comment.
So my other item just to call out here is this from Shippy Siren, which is, when MSOs come to New York, what does that mean for selling their items in card license dispensaries and vice versa?
Yeah, I talked to people who are affiliated with MSOs in other states, and what was wild to me is how incorrectly they were interpreting our regulations. They absolutely can sell their products in our card dispensaries. That's literally the whole point. The only license that is independent and autonomous from licenses that in other states that might be vertically integrated is retail. So anyone who wants to start a brand, who wants to start a grow, a processing facility, a distribution facility, welcome to New York. And and I think the thing is some MSOs are used to going to a dispensary and being like, I'll give you $30,000 a month if you put my products on your shelf. What we're doing in New York is like the retailer is going to look you dead in the eye. He's like, how good is your product? Who wants to buy it? What's special about it? There's no money. There's no financial exchange there to put that product on the shelf. We want our dispensaries to actually sell the best product. We don't want them to be commercials for big brands, which is what you will find in a lot of other states. And it's like, I was telling a friend recently about what it reminded me of. You remember when Instagram was like really honed in on the ads, and every time you swipe, they were getting the really targeted ads, and you're like, yo, this is trash. Like, what is this?
And now I'm getting ads for teeth whitening and balding products. And I just want to call out what I'm dealing with. I also want to do this. We have people we're getting more viewers, which is great. We have more questions coming in. I want to let you finish this point. I'm going to bring in a special guest to ask these 3 really hot questions. So yeah, go for it.
But yeah, no, I think that the dispensary in other states are turning into that like version of Instagram where like you're not getting what you actually want when you walk into a dispensary. You're being marketed to, you're being sold something, and that's not fun for anybody. And we're not actually like finding out what customers actually want. This is a new industry, a new legal industry, at least. Like people shouldn't be marketed to this heavily when they walk into a dispensary. They should have every option in the world available to them in those dispensaries so they can figure it out. And then when they figure it out, the whole state, the whole country gets to figure it out, and we get the best products. And so that the MSOs are absolutely welcome to sell their products to our card dispensaries. They just got to convince the card dispensaries to put it on their shelf.
All right, awesome. So Carly and I have a special guest who definitely is interested in sharing his thoughts. I'm going to preload what he just sent us, and shout out to Carlos, who was the social equity chair over at the Cannabis Association of New York. I will let him take his time here while I go get alkaline water and Carlene finds water because my throat hurts. So I'm going to let you two rock out.
The air is dry. It's the dry air right now.
Yes, but
it's a coalition effort. It's a coalition effort.
But this big situation on taxation, like, I think that's going to be a huge one we have, and I'll let Carlos kick that off and get to asking.
Oh, you're muted.
Thank you for that. Taxation with regards to the regulations is an issue that requires some explanation for card processors and hopefully brand creators. Can you shed more details on this?
Yeah, so we have a THC tax, a potency tax, much like in the alcohol industry. And I think this goes back to the fact that like a lot of the MRTA is modeled off of the SLA, State Liquor Authority. So you buy 70 proof liquor, you're going to pay a higher tax on that liquor. And that was intended back in the day to disincentivize high liquor drinks, moonshine, all the other things. Just like cigarettes too. They use tax to disincentivize the use of the product. I do think cannabis is different. I think that it makes sense in alcohol and tobacco, which is very bad for your body. When cannabis is much more therapeutic, it's medicine, and THC is an important element of that medicinal value, and so we do have to look at that potency tax if it is overburdensome to producers. And if you guys go back to the MRTA and check it out, there's actually a provision in there that requires us by law to review the potency tax in 2023. So next fall, we have a mandate to actually look at what the potency tax has done in terms of the market. How much of is it a burden on producers? Is it making it impossible for us to compete with the legacy market? If that's the case, when we do that study that it shows us that this is just too burdensome, then we absolutely have to go back to Albany in 2024 in January when they go back to session and talk about different options. All I'll say is that like whatever we come up with, it will have to be revenue neutral. So it will have to generate the same amount of tax revenue that the current potency tax already generates. And so I think that there's a lot of paths to doing that. We just saw California lower their cultivation tax and their projections as well. A lot of studies that came out about that showed the market growing by lowering the cultivation tax because producers were more profitable, more businesses could get into the space. The industry just grows organically. And so I'm absolutely supportive of, lowering that tax or changing it in some kind of way to make it simpler for people to actually pay. If the study that we do next year, it shows that it was a problem.
Got it. Thank you.
Absolutely. How you doing, Carlos?
Fine.
Is this the second question?
Yes. Okay. How will retailers be empowered to survive peak rush hours and meet demand? For example, the current illicit market has more than 25 employees during peak hours. What's the reasoning behind 25?
So with delivery, you're talking about the employee limit on the delivery license? Yeah. So the reason for that is to prevent the monopolization of the delivery market. And let's remember, what's happened to delivery over the last 10 years in New York City. It's now controlled by maybe 3 companies. You used to call your restaurant and order for delivery. And then all of a sudden these apps showed up, now take $10 off of the with a fee. And there's a lot of things that happened in the food and beverage delivery space that we saw. And I think that, a lot of the people who wrote the MRTA also took into account, we want the delivery space to be competitive. We want small businesses to have access to it. I actually think, if you saw the guidance we just released for the card recipients, you can have a bike, you can have a scooter, you can walk delivery. That's access. That's how a lot of different communities are able to get into the space because of the low barriers to entry. And so, that limitation on the employee count is simply to limit large delivery corporations from coming in and consolidating the space before anyone's been able to actually experiment with the business model. I think that it's not forever. It can't be forever. But if you want a competitive, easy access industry in the delivery space, which would benefit consumers in the long term, that's why that employee limit is there.
Got it. Thank you very much, Damien.
And thank you, Carlos, for joining us so last minute. We appreciate it. We are going to do an extremely fire-ristic job of getting through these 3 additional questions. We are ending very soon. And so if you have more questions, we'll make sure Damien tells you where you can go yell at him or send him a compliment.
Mary, you froze.
Oh, no. Can you see me now? Am I frozen?
No,
Carly,
Yep.
did she freeze for you?
Nope. Did she only freeze when she told people how to roll up on you, Damien?
Wow. Open your third eye.
Illuminati.
Damien got a Boost Mobile Wi-Fi connection.
The state government got a Boost Mobile Wi-Fi.
It's giving AOL disc. So don't play
Not
me.
with our state budget. Not with our state
I'm
budget.
using Verizon. Okay.
Oh no. I'm about to get in trouble.
But it's going to be fast because we got to move fast. When will individuals who didn't participate in the hemp program be allowed to apply for a cultivator grower license? Fast answers.
Next summer. And I will say that, we're about to start a mentorship program. And we started interviewing the mentorship candidates for the grower and processor mentorship program. And I just want to say that we got in that program, just based off of objective scoring and, over 600 applications from all over the country, some of the best legacy growers and processors in the state participate in that program. And we really, want to get those folks up to speed on a lot of the compliance issues, the labor law issues, so that when those applications open up in July or June or August, I think July is the goal, July, those cultivation licenses, they're ready for them. Because we got to get legacy growers and processors from the Bronx to Buffalo into this industry. I was just at the growers cut recently and I smelled weed that we need in the legal industry. We need those growers. We need those genetics. We need that culture or our industry is just not going to succeed.
When we're talking about the next round of card licenses, how many can we get out there, what that's all about, given all the situation?
Yeah.
Is that going to be announced next week? Let's dive into that.
We will have more card licenses coming out before the end of the year, ideally before Christmas. And I think that what people will kind of be surprised by is that the amount might be a little bit lower than previously because the scores are actually getting closer. You have to be a little bit more careful, slowly scoring applicants And just so people understand, there is actually a team here in the Albany office, 10 people who have been working weekends, going through all these applications and letting people fix the deficiencies in their application, which doesn't happen in other states. If you missed, if you were late on the payment, if you missed some thing you had to check, some box you had to check, disqualified. We're giving people all the time they need to fix that stuff, because we don't want people to miss this opportunity because they forgot to check a box.
All right, I'm going to go real fast with these two. I'm going to make sure I can have them loaded up. Delivery license, can you talk about it? And if your card, can you deliver anywhere in New York State?
She cut out for me again. The Illuminati's acting up. She said the delivery license?
Yes.
The question's on the screen for you, Damien.
If the car license, can you deliver anywhere in New York? Oh, yes. Yeah, you can. Someone in Queens could deliver to Buffalo if they so choose to. There's no limitation on how far they can go to deliver cannabis, but I mean, just operationally, it wouldn't make sense. But yeah.
This question, given that there was an announcement today about a verification program, how do I know which stores are licensed? So let's dive into that. And I think that's going to be our last one. Sierra, it seems like she's about to attack us. I'm doing what I can. I don't want to go over. I don't want no smoke.
No, we're good. I just got to get back on the road to the city because it's snowing in Albany and it's getting snowy. The governor yesterday, there was a press release. We are going to have stickers on the storefront with what is it called? One of the things you scan with your phone. What is it?
QR code.
Yeah, you scan with your phone. You can verify if it's a actual licensed location or not. Listen, like those storefronts, we're going to do our best to start closing them down. We're also going to start increasing the footprint of the legal market so that there are legal storefronts and there are legal options for consumers. But we really do want people to understand who they're buying from. And if it doesn't have that sticker on the front with that code that you can use your phone to verify and even check some of the lab tests on the products too in the store, don't go into it. Don't buy it. And so that's what that sticker is going to do, and it's going to help consumers make the right decision.
All right, last question. Sierra's going to kill me. Home grow, plant count. What's that all about?
People don't like the 12 plant count. I feel like it's 6 actually. Was the original proposal 12 per dog? Oh, was it? I don't know. I only started here 6 months ago. I don't work here. 6 plants is a lot of weed over the course of a year. I don't know how much people are smoking, but that's, if you're a decent grower, that's almost 3 pounds of weed. And so, I think that let's get to at least the recreational home grow place first. And then we can see how people do with the 6 plants before we start increasing that plant count. And let me just say something. 18 months after this first card dispensary opens up, everyone in New York State for recreational purposes will be able to grow cannabis at home. We plan to have nurseries in the city, micro businesses in the city, selling clones, selling genetics, selling seedlings. You'll be able to go and get your specific strain that you like, bring it back to your place, grow it in your apartment, and you won't have to actually spend your money at the store.
And I want to just make sure, when are the regs available for people to comment, and when will people actually get them? This is Nicole is lighting us up, trying to make sure she understands that.
You can actually get the right. Nicole, they're on the website. What's up, Nicole? Go to the website right now. Go to Cannabis Control Board and go to our previous board meeting. And the proposed regs are listed are in a PDF right there, 280 pages. And I think they were also posted on the governor's website today as part of the public registrar. Read those regs. Nicole, they've been out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe. But today's the first day you can actually comment on them. So send us an email. Next 60 days is when we're going to incorporate all that feedback. And guys, we are going to listen to people. It's not like hard. We're actually going to incorporate feedback that we get this time. Apologies about the last time, but this is important we get this one right. This is all the licenses going forward for years after this. So make sure to let us know in the comments.
And so I just want to say thank you to everyone. This went faster than I thought. I'm back here trying to do my little Spielberg, and then I'm trying to I was getting my newsroom on. I was really excited about that. Thank you to the Office of Cannabis Management. I'm going to leave us with a final word from Sierra Smith, the Deputy Communications Director who put this together. I'm so excited that you all stood aligned with us. And please make sure, when is going to be the next OCM meeting?
Can't clarify that, but it will definitely be before Christmas.
Before
That's
Christmas.
great. All
Yes.
right. And Sierra, I will let you take it away. Thank you, Damien. Thank you, Carlene. And Sierra, it is your time.
Can everybody hear me? Sorry, I'm a little frozen, so I'm not sure. Oh no.
We might have lost her, and that's okay. So I'm going to bring everybody back, and we're going to do it one more time. That's totally fine. I just want to know.
Let's see her close it out. Where'd she go?
We are. I don't know what happened.
Mental connection on the internet.
So we gonna stay here together because I don't know what happened, and I feel like there's a conspiracy happening on the live, and I don't know.
Oh, yeah, the radio waves.
I don't know what's happening. I'm trying to stay woke and not, I'm like, wow.
No. All right, Sierra, close this out.
Okay, I'm still frozen, but I'm gonna close this out with this. Thank you so much, Mary and team and Carlene and everybody that's helped out with this. We're so excited to continue to kind of bring this information to you all. If you have any comments, follow us at NYS_cannabis. And we will be happy to help you with anything you need. And we just hope to be a resource and just like a sounding board for all our people.
Yes, and thank you again. Thank you to Carlene. Thank you to Latinas Grove.
Thank you, guys.
Sarah Smith, the Deputy Director of Digital. Apologies for that mistitling on my end. Thank you to Damien, the Chief Equity Officer. And thank you to all of you for sticking by with us, and have a beautiful, beautiful Thursday.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Everyone.